July 13th, 2009. It's the second test of a three-test series between Sri Lanka and Pakistan held in Sri Lanka's capital of Colombo. After being bowled out for 90 in the first innings, Pakistan started their second trailing by 150 runs. They would need efforts from the entire team, which included some of their all-time greatest players, if they were to avoid losing by an innings. But this innings in particular wasn't remembered for the batting of these legends, but because of the batting of someone who was just playing their first test match, Fawad Alam. On debut, Fawad had been thrust into the opener's position, setting his stall out as a player who was willing to be the anchor that his team needed. And for nearly 6.5 hours, Fawad batted as though he'd been a test player for years to help Pakistan get a lead in this match. Deep into day one, with captain Yunus Khan at the other end, he brings up his first test century, a debut century, to announce to the world that a new Pakistani batting star had been born. Even though his final score of 168 runs would not be enough as Pakistan lost that test, Fawad was the silver lining. Pakistan had found a new test player amidst the turmoil of defeat. But as we'll see, Fawad's career after that point was nothing like the Cinderella story of his debut. It was a tale of what could have been rather than what was, leaving us with many questions unanswered instead of the fairy tale cricket story that he probably deserved. Fawad Alam hails from Pakistan's largest city of Karachi. Born into a cricketing family, Fawad played for the Pakistan Customs team and local Karachi sides like the Dolphins during his formative years. And it was in these teams where his potential was noticed by national selectors, not only as a batter capable of putting on runs, but as a slow left-arm orthodox bowler and as a player for the high-pressure situation. This total package was why he was picked for the Pakistan ODI squad in 2007. But for many, his true calling, the one that would see him use all of his potential in Pakistan green, was in the test side. And this is why Fawad's century should have been so important for the team despite them losing the series 3-0. Captain Yunus Khan said after the series, "Give this team some time, don't point fingers too early. The team is in a rebuilding phase." He should have enjoyed a run of games in the test squad to solidify his position, but this wasn't what occurred. See, the sands were shifting beneath Fawad's feet as Pakistani cricket was in the midst of one of its most turbulent periods in history. Yunus Khan had resigned as captain for all Pakistani men's teams over allegations of match fixing in the 2006 ICC Champions Trophy, as well as losing a home ODI series against New Zealand. That series itself was held in the UAE due to security concerns after Sri Lanka's tour bus was attacked in Lahore earlier that year. On the field, these changes had meant Mohammad Yusuf was now captain, and it left a massive hole in the Pakistani middle order. Fawad was moved down to 3 for the New Zealand tour in November 2009, but only lasted there for the first test, as another debutant, Umar Akmal, scored a century on his debut, and the 3 spot was taken by him for the second test. If all that wasn't enough, it was then decided that Misbah-ul-Haq would replace Fawad in the 11 itself. He was now out altogether. To make matters worse for the drop player, Pakistan would win that second test towards an eventual 1-1 series result. In what seemed like a blink of an eye, Fawad goes from being a shining light in the Pakistani test side to being unceremoniously dropped from the side altogether, with many of these things being out of his control. The message from the selectors, even if it wasn't said in so many words, was that he hadn't performed up to their required level to stay in the test side. But he couldn't simply go back to Pakistan and dedicate his time to play in the domestic competitions, hoping that a mountain of runs will get his test spot back. He was still a regular in Pakistan's ODI and T20 side, which meant splitting his time between the 3 formats. This would continue for the next 18 months until he was dropped from both squads by the end of 2010. While his performances in the limited overs side weren't the greatest at that time, the one format he was excelling in was with the red ball, albeit with lesser games. For the past 2 seasons in the Quaid-e-Azam Trophy, having only played 8 games between them, Fawad had racked up 4 centuries and 2 half-centuries at an average of 66.63 runs. From the beginning of the 2011-12 season, that mountain of runs we spoke about him needing was starting to build. Over the next 3 seasons, he scored over 2,500 runs. Only, in order for him to get back into the side, there needs to be an opening. And unlike the shifting sands that we spoke about earlier, Pakistan had used this time to build a formidable test side, their best in years.
Crunch down the ground. Oh, that's a cracking shot.
Under captain Misbah-ul-Haq, the guy who replaced Fawad in 2010, Pakistan were about to go on a run of 2 years where they didn't lose a test series, beating Australia, England and Sri Lanka in the process towards becoming the #1 test team in the world. The middle order, the spot where Fawad would have gone into, had no openings, with Azhar Ali, Yunus Khan, Misbah himself, and Asad Shafiq, building much of the run-scoring bedrock that made the team so successful. Even if one or two players would have had an off test, any team would be hesitant to change that combination given how successful it was. In this time, Fawad would occasionally be called up to the wider test squad, but he would never get on the field. For the selectors, it was the best problem you could ever have, having too much talent to pick from. Unless, of course, you're like Fawad, now in his late 20s, as one of those on the outside, looking in. The top, however, rarely ever stay on top, and by 2017, after being whitewashed in New Zealand and Australia, Pakistan's two pillars in the middle order, Yunus Khan and Misbah Haq, both retire in Dominica. That opening that Fawad had been waiting for so long was finally there, and his domestic figures should have put him front and centre for contention. Fawad was once again brought into the squad, but somehow still didn't get picked. In the next 7 test series, Pakistan would only win 2, one against Ireland and another against a rebuilding Australia side in the UAE.
Taken, magnificent piece of fielding at short leg. Who have we got there?
Now this is where, taking a step back for a second, you have to wonder, is this really about on-field numbers at all? Because Fawad had them in droves. It had to be about something else. And if you read the media, it was about something that shouldn't really have mattered at all. You see, over the years in Quaid-e-Azam, Fawad's batting stance had changed. He'd gone from standing in a fairly orthodox stance in his test debut to standing front on with the bowler and his feet facing square leg or even finer. It might not work for you or me, and it looked weird, but the great thing about batting is that there's no one right way to be successful. Like the great Shivnarine Chanderpaul, Fawad had created a unique batting stance that worked for him, and the proof was in the pudding. Writer Kumail Zaidi, writing for Pakistan's Dawn newspaper, temporarily played the devil's advocate to explain why Fawad kept getting passed over. Observe Fawad's batting stance. It exudes anything but style. The square-on stance comes from Shivnarine Chanderpaul and Craig McMillan's school of thought, and is plain out ugly. What's missing? Elegance. Fawad's greatest misfortune is that he fails the eye test. The selectors' train of thought might have been, sure, it works at domestic level, but what about international level? They might have their doubts, and when a selector's employment rests on if their picks are successful or not, you could understand why they might be hesitant to pick him, even if you, me, or Kumail definitely didn't agree with it. In 2018, Inzamam ul Haq, then chief selector, infamously said that he had seen better players in the last 3 years than Fawad, and that even though his career average can't be ignored, he wasn't at the standard he thought necessary for selection. Where would that leave Fawad? The guy was the most consistently prolific performer in the domestic arena for the past decade, and that still wasn't enough? Who cares what he looked like doing it? His prospects at ever getting back to the highest level looked bleak. But in being the professional he is though, Fawad did the only thing that he could do for the next 2 years. Go back and perform on the field. And his averages stood around 70 runs per innings for those next 2 seasons. And over that time, something that changed the lives of people around the world might also change Fawad's fortunes in the test arena. In the year 2020, amidst a worldwide COVID pandemic, Pakistan's administration had some different yet familiar faces. Inzamam was no longer there, and Misbah was now head coach. Haris Sohail had decided to withdraw from a tour of England due to the pandemic, and Pakistan needed to fill his test spot in the middle order. At the Rose Bowl in Southampton, after 10 years and 256 days of waiting, not to mention thousands and thousands of first-class runs, Fawad Alam was picked to once again play for his country. Somehow, it seemed that a global pandemic is what it took for Pakistan to finally choose their best batter in the domestic scene. I'm joking. But unfortunately, this test wasn't like his debut. With light fading deep into day 1, Fawad Alam came to the crease with Pakistan in trouble at 4 for 117. And just 8 balls later, he was back on his way to the pavilion, having played a round 1 that was going on to hit the top of middle. The cricketing gods really are a fickle bunch. There was no second at bat for him, as the match was rained out to a draw. His second match of the series wasn't much better either, getting out for 21 in the first innings, and being at the crease as another match is yet again rained out. He did get 2 wickets with the ball though. It wouldn't be far-fetched for Fawad to have flashbacks to 2010 at this point. He got the call up, but played worse than he did on his debut. Would this series be the second one to end with him being dropped? No. Luckily, the selectors stuck by him this time around. It was another 4 months before Pakistan's next test series in New Zealand on Boxing Day 2020. They ran into a Kiwi team that was 6 months away from being crowned World Test champions. And they showed why in this game. Putting 431 runs on the board in under 2 days, New Zealand's bowling attack went to work, quickly pegging back Pakistan's openers. Abid Ali is their second wicket after he toiled for 104 balls for just 24 runs. None of Pakistan's next 4 batters get into double digits, including Fawad, and if it wasn't for a 71 run knock from Mohammad Rizwan and 90 odd from Fahim Ashraf, Pakistan might have been following on. New Zealand bat for another 180 runs before declaring, setting 373 runs to win.
Oh, it's a chance, got it! It's gone! He wants to be moving, is it a chance? Yes, it is!
What Pakistan need in a situation like this to have any chance of saving this game on day 5 is a grafter, someone who puts a high price on their wicket and scores the runs the hard way, even if it's a little ugly. And I think you and we might know a guy. Fawad Alam comes to the crease and sets about trying to stem the flow of wickets, sticking out 130 balls with Azhar Ali before Ali goes for 38. Mohammad Rizwan comes to the crease and the two keep Pakistan's hopes alive. Fawad reaches 50 off 149 balls and after facing another 87, smattered with some beautiful shots in between, Fawad gets his second ever test century.
That's 100! What a performance! Gritty, nuggety, the stickability.
It looked like a weight that's worth 10 years of persistence and disappointment is finally lifted off his shoulders. Now, Pakistan wouldn't end up winning this match. They lost by 101 runs, but for Fawad, he'd done his job, cementing his spot as best he could. Fawad couldn't stop to take it in though. Him, perhaps more than anyone, knew just how quickly these things can change. He had to keep producing with the bat to stay in the side, which is what he did, at home against South Africa, in Zimbabwe, and in the West Indies. 3 centuries and 5 test matches, followed by a 50 not out in Bangladesh.
An innings of determination and resilience.
But his time in the sunlight, however bright it was, didn't last forever. After Pakistan lost a home series to Australia in March 2022, followed by a drawn away series to Sri Lanka, Fawad was dropped again, and up until the time of writing, hasn't played another test for Pakistan. And to be honest, as I make this, it doesn't look like he will get another shot. His domestic numbers are still phenomenal. Last season he scored 706 runs at an average of 64.18. However, Saud Shakil is showing to be one of the best middle order batters to come through the Pakistani ranks in years. Now 37, almost 38 years of age, he remains committed to playing domestic cricket, despite reports to the contrary, but his days for consideration into the test team appear to be limited. To complicate matters, Inzamam ul-Haq has recently been reappointed as chief selector for Pakistan. This really leads us to our final question. If this is the end of Fawad's test career, what are we to make of it? The overwhelming feeling I got researching the story was that Fawad had the type of career that 99% of cricketers would be proud of. But unlike most, Fawad many times produced numbers that should have put him in the top 1% of batters around the world. And for reasons out of his control, like Pakistan having a number 1 ranked test side for a time, or selectors that didn't like the way he batted, he was denied the chance for years to prove his ability on the biggest stage. And that's a massive shame for him and us as cricketing fans, because when he did get his time to shine, no matter how relatively short it was, his quality was clear for the world to see. But I think in a sense, these roadblocks have shown the true character of the man. He didn't complain, he didn't give up, he put his head down and produced the types of numbers that will leap off the page even 100 years from now. If we don't ever get to see Fawad Alam in a test match again, I would love for him to know that even if those 14,526 first class runs weren't enough for Pakistani selectors on many occasions, they were enough for us, and they were enough to show just how great he truly was. Hey guys, cheers for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a thumbs up below and share it with someone who you think might like it also. These little things really help grow the channel and getting it out to more people like yourself, and I really appreciate your continued support. Also, if you're new, thanks for checking out the video and consider subscribing if you want to see more of this type of content. On screen now is another video from my channel that the algorithm has picked especially for you, so have a look if you're interested. There's plenty more vids on the way, but until the next one, take care and I'll see you soon.